The Ouya was supposed to change console gaming forever, but instead it became the most dead console of the last decade, it being the Kickstarter darling that raised 8.6 million bucks, shipped to 200,000 people, and then quietly got old yellered in 2019. Which means if you pull one out of a bin today, it's a very cute plasticky paperweight. It was until a developer named Christian Weiske, along with the community involved in reviving the Ouya, brought the entire thing back to life. And so today, we are gonna revive a 12-year-old Ouya, restoring the full Discovery Store, and then doing something this console was never, ever designed to do. We're gonna take this thing on the road. Real quick, if you're new here, hey, I'm Coulter, and on this channel we cover console modding, retro handhelds, weird PC builds, and generally janky tech projects like this one. So if that sounds like you, be sure to subscribe down below so you don't miss future videos. So I was able to pick up this Ouya for cheap in box, and honestly, it's still really cute. That little 3-inch aluminum cube with the sleek industrial design, the infamous plasticky controller in all its glory. Unironically, I wanted one of these back in 2013. I wanted one fairly badly, actually. And if you're wondering why, quick Ouya history recap. It was a $99 Android console, rocking a Tegra 3 quad-core chip, a gig of RAM, a whole gig back then went a long way, 8 gigs of storage, and it ran Android 4.1 Jelly Bean, which, yeah, there's a nice little nostalgia flashbang for the day. It actually sold to Razer in 2015, partly because they were having money troubles, but we'll get to why in a minute. And then in 2019, the servers officially went dark, and without those servers, your Ouya is just stuck at the setup screen forever. It can't even get past the connect to network screen. But thanks to some archivist wizardry, we can fix every bit of that and do a little more with this thing than it was planned to do. Also, this video is sponsored by VITURE and their new Beast XR glasses, which is going to become extremely relevant a little bit later in this video, so more on that in a second. But our quest today is to revive this mystery condition Ouya and completely revive it in 2026, and then boldly go where no Ouya was ever meant to go before. So first things first, let's figure out what condition this Ouya is in, because like I mentioned, I bought this used and don't really know what the whole vibe is with this, but it did come in its box, which was super cool, so I got to enjoy the unboxing experience of the Ouya and its glorious controller. As far as the cost of entry for this operation, Ouyas tend to go for anywhere between 20 and 50 bucks on the used market, depending on condition. Mine actually didn't come with a power supply, which was a bummer, but it was really no problem because the Ouya takes like the most common barrel jack 12 volt 1.5 amp thing you'd find on like any router at Value Village, so yeah, that was not really an issue. And so with the power supply sourced, now it's time to fire this thing up and see what's going on with it. And right off the bat, things were looking pretty good. It fired up, the LED came on, got display, the controller paired up, only after I figured out that this controller's design is that you pry these magnetic faceplates off and then put the batteries in each handle, which was weird, but I guess innovative? And I was like, great, let's like play with this thing a bit and see what's going on. And so I accepted my language and then I went to pair it to the network and it said, your Wi-Fi doesn't work. And I was like, shoot, do I need to like set up a compatible SSID on my network? Like I was going into my Unify settings thinking, okay, I need to like create a really old Wi-Fi network to simulate like 2012, which, okay, Wi-Fi wasn't that bad in 2012, but you never know what standards these things wanted. But alas, no, that warning is because it's trying to ping the now dead Ouya servers to determine if the internet is truly reachable, which obviously the internet is online, but those servers are not. And so it's basing this whole operation on a lie. And that's when it's time to turn to those community servers we talked about, created by Christian Weiske and the overall Ouya restoration community around him. But basically what they did was they reverse engineered the Ouya servers and all the calls the Ouya is trying to make to those servers. And then they built a static replacement server that's hosted to this day that you can point your Ouya at instead. And an important point there is by static, I mean that like that new server doesn't have any database or logins or anything fancy. It's literally just a dummy server, bunch of flat files. So for example, when the Ouya wants a particular game, it just points it at that APK on, say, archive.org. And when the Ouya says, let me log in, it says, great, you're logged in. You can just put in a fake username and no password and it'll just let you in, which is super nice. Big shout out to Jason Scott for all the preservation of all those games that would have been lost when the Ouya server shut down, and also to the Ouya Saviors Discord community that did a lot of work around this. Those servers and the way of installing them on the Ouya has evolved a bit since their inception in 2019. So today, all we have to do is actually run this one-liner PowerShell command while having the Ouya connected to our PC via an ADB connection. And then it gives us this lovely little menu saying, do you want to root your Ouya? Do you want to set the community servers on your Ouya? Do you want to factory reset it? Do you want to go so far as install an expose module that actually strips out purchase verification so you can access the likely mostly abandoned titles that were for sale back then? It's all super easy. You just root set community servers and you're done. At least for most people, but I'm not most people. And I was stuck with an Ouya that someone had tried to already root or do something with it, and the script could just not talk to this Ouya properly. And so I had a different journey in store for me. Rapid fire, here's what that looked like. Basically, I booted the Ouya into recovery via ADB, quickly realized that the stock recovery environment does nothing on the Ouya. Super helpful, thank you. So I booted it into fastboot instead, also using the ADB connection to trigger that reboot. Found that in Device Manager, my PC could not recognize the Ouya when it was in fastboot mode, so then I manually installed the Android fastboot drivers so my PC could talk to the Ouya. Then I tried to flash Clockwork Recovery and then boot into recovery, but then I found out that when you boot into Ouya recovery, it clobbers your custom recovery and reflashes its own recovery. Super cool. And so then while in flash boot, I booted directly into my recovery image. Effectively, that recovery was living in RAM at the time. And then while in that temporary recovery, I was able to wipe and factory reset the Ouya, flash the stock ROM image I grabbed from the web, clear the caches, and then finally boot into a clean, completely reset Ouya, which only took multiple more hours than I'd planned for this thing to take. And then I was able to log in with username fake Coulter and no password, and I was finally able to experience the Ouya in all of its 2013 glory, complete with the Discover Store and the game details, and I was able to download games and essentially just enjoy the vision that was sold to me in the 2012 Kickstarter back in the day. And I actually had a really good time. Playing classics like Riptide GP still holds up really fun. I played Reckless Getaway for the first time, which was also a fun, kind of crazy taxi bank heist game hybrid. Like, many of you watching might know this game. I did not, but I had a great time playing it. Then of course there's the emulators for this guy, which I was very excited about back in the day. Being able to emulate Super Nintendo on a console sounded super cool back then, because, you know, we didn't have very powerful consoles that were hackable back then. So I fired up some good old SNES 9X and played some good old Aladdin for Super Nintendo, and even pushed this thing to rock some Mupen 64, and Star Wars Pod Racer does run surprisingly smooth actually, just, you know, with some graphical glitches, because, you know, that's about the top end of the emulation this thing can do. As far as the infamous controller, I found it to be fine. It's plasticky for sure. The triggers definitely feel like they came in a Happy Meal, but the touchpad in the middle that I discovered is weirdly cool. And the face buttons marked OUYA to spell Ouya is really cute. Like, it's easy to tell there was a real dream behind this thing, and it's cool to finally experience the full vision. Genuinely, I had a great time getting this thing up and running just at this point in the project. And by the way, if you're into this whole kind of reviving dead hardware stuff, maybe consider subscribing down below. Apparently a lot of you watch this channel without subscribing, and it would really help out the channel if you subscribe, so much appreciated. Okay, we've got the Ouya working in 2026, which is cool, but not cool enough. It has no screen, no battery, no convenient USB power even, no concept of mobility. So naturally, we're gonna take it to Starbucks. So first, solving the screen problem. How do you run a 2013 console that can only output HDMI on the go while chilling at your favorite local cafe? Enter this video sponsor, VITURE, and their brand new Beast XR glasses, which just fully launched on their website, Amazon, and Best Buy. If you missed my previous video about these glasses, they're basically a full-size display crammed into a pair of sunglasses. You put them on, and you're looking at what feels like a massive screen floating in front of you. And the Beast in particular is kind of like a ridiculous top-end version of that concept. It uses Sony's latest micro OLED screens in there, paired with a wider 58-degree field of view, which translates to the equivalent of like a 174-inch screen when you're looking at it, according to VITURE. They're 1200p, which at that distance is a very 4K-like resolution to your corneas there. Irises, corneas, rods and cones, some part of your eye. And on top of all that, it's rocking 1250 nits of brightness, which means that yes, indeed, I was able to very much enjoy this while basically sitting in the sun outside. Now, that might not be a recommended practice. There'll be a disclaimer down here if VITURE doesn't want me to tell you to wear these outside. But yeah, I was rocking these on the Starbucks patio and having a great time, having no issue seeing my game. And the feature that I genuinely did not expect to love is anchor mode. There's built-in 3DOF motion tracking built right into the glasses. That's how this little camera is here for, to help make that happen. And so you can actually pin the virtual screen to a fixed point in real space, meaning you can turn your head to look at the screen, turn your head away to like sip your coffee and have the translucency automatically fade back so you can see what's around you, and then turn back to it, have the translucency kick in, and then really focus you in on what you're gaming on over here. But then the last piece, of course, is that for our specific setup, these take a USB-C DisplayPort connection, and our Ouya is rocking HDMI full size here. So how do we connect those? And thankfully that's where we use the VITURE mobile dock here, which can take in either say like a switch 2 signal and convert it to where your switch 2 doesn't do its weird dock stuff, or it can just take a full-size HDMI connection and then you just plug 1 or 2 pairs of glasses in here and act as a nice little portable liaison between our Ouya and our glasses for display. So thank you VITURE for solving the display portion of this project, and if you're interested in checking out the Beast for yourself, it's currently $549 at beast.viture.com, Amazon, and Best Buy. So huge thanks to VITURE for sponsoring this video, and of course for sending these cool things over. So now with display solved, the Ouya still needs 12 volts and 1.5 amps through the barrel jack. And let's just be real, barrel jacks just kind of suck. 14 years later, in a world where everything is powered via USB-C, I like that world. I don't like this world where we had random barrel jacks for every little thing we owned. So to solve that, a reasonable person might engineer a fancy little USB-C to 12 volt barrel jack adapter using one of those trigger boards that negotiates the PD voltage. It might take a person smarter than me to solder that up in about 15 minutes and only cost them like $8 in parts. Or you can do what I did and bring a whole EcoFlow home battery backup with you to Starbucks with enough juice to power the Ouya continuously for the remaining amount of time it has left on this earth, which I don't know how long that is because it made a few whirring sounds in the fan there. We'll see. So we solved our power, we solved our display, and now there's nothing left to do but look extremely cool doing this at Starbucks with no one there giving me any weird looks at all. I promise you. So of course with this full setup running, I cracked open Riptide GP on my virtual 174-inch virtual screen while sipping my tea off to the side. Then some Reckless Getaway because I'm hooked on that game and cannot stop. And for some reason playing my glitchy Star Wars Pod Racer emulation on my virtual 174-inch screen while being outside on a beautiful day on a Starbucks patio just made me not care so much about that glitchiness in the emulation. Now is this the best way to game on the go in 2026? Absolutely not. I could describe the new Absolute S9V controller, which also happens to be a VITURE ecosystem partner. It's got the little jack on the bottom there so you can plug in your glasses. Clip in my phone and play the same games at probably double or quintuple the frame rate on hardware from this decade. And although that's not what we're doing today, not saying I didn't enjoy gaming on this sick little controller while at Starbucks as well, especially with the glasses paired up to it. But the wild thing that hit me while doing this project is that the Ouya was actually declared dead twice. Like, it died in the market in 2015, and then Razer, the new parent company we mentioned earlier, pulled the plug in 2019. But despite that, this little thing is still playable in 2026 because a developer in Germany and a community of archivists decided it shouldn't be. Yet again, just another huge W for the open source community and the game preservation community as well. Like, thank you so much for all your work on this, and I unironically very much enjoyed gaming on my little Ouya in 2026. But because of that, I'm a little curious to know what other consoles I should be reviving like this. If there's a console that people say is dead, but you know there's life left in it, let me know in the comments because I'm very curious to see what other projects like this we could do and take them to weird extremes and new places apparently. And if this video made you tempted to pull your Ouya out of mothballs, go ahead and drop that little asteroid guy emoji in the comments so I know that you enjoyed this content. And if you like this video, probably enjoyed the one where I got the GameCube and even some Wii games running quite well on a modded Switch super easily with Tico, which was honestly way more polished than it had any right to be. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.